right. Welcome, everybody, to Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pelot, and you can find me at pureenergypdx.com. Today, I am here with a very special guest. His name is Paris Robinson, and he's here today to talk with us about some really, really interesting stuff. A very inspirational story, I'll guess, because I've heard him speak before. And Paris, just a little bit about him. He's a speaker, a motivator, and a coach. And he has an incredible story that I can't wait for him to share it with you today. So thank you so much, Paris, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I would love to start today by just you sharing more about yourself and also giving my audience an idea of your journey, what you had to deal with and how you got to where you are today with this great speaking career. And you're really motivating people to think about their own potential as more unlimited, and is the way I look at it. And just because when I listened to your story, I was just blown away by how much you proved you can really overcome a mindset of what is possible with the physical. So I won't say any more, but I'll hand the mic over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Okay, well, you was doing such a fabulous job, But
Thank you.
yes, but my name is Paris Robinson. I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up on the north side of what they call Highland Park, where my mother, she provided very well for me and my brother. She did the best she could. I was considered a latchkey kid, so she did a lot of work and left me at home, to become a kid. And when you're in an environment that's sometimes can be detrimental, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to your health, you tend to wander,
Yeah.
So my mother didn't have a lot of strings attached to me as far as her being at work. So, I got to go out and venture and get into some trouble here and there. And, just growing up as a little boy in the neighborhood, wanting to do what the other little kids and guys did. And, one thing I can say about my mother, may she rest in peace. She provided very well for me. I never grew up in the projects. I didn't know what it was like to come home with any food or, the lights off or no phone. I had my own bedroom. Me and my brother, as a child, I played sports. I loved to ride dirt bikes and motorcycles. So I had a very well childhood. It was probably it was when I got in high school. My friends changed.
Mm.
And in high school, you get involved with your cliques. You hang out who you associate with. Like the jocks hang out with the jocks. The band players hang out with the band players, the cheerleaders, etc., etc. And for some reason, I just like the hard-headed kid. And actually, it wasn't actually them that I liked. It was the attention that they got that I liked.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, whether it be bad or good, it was attention, and they was known, and I wanted something, I wanted to be a part of that, so I hung out with them a lot. I ended up getting into trouble. I got introduced to selling drugs at probably around about the 9th, 10th grade, and like I said, I was venturing out before this into the neighborhood. So I got to see what money would bring,
Right.
like the cars, the jewelry, the females, the attention, and what we would call hood rich. Everybody in our neighborhood looked up to you because you had, so much stuff. And I I wanted part of that. I fell in love with that lifestyle early on. And
Yeah.
for when I was in high school, I had an idea that when I finished school, I was not going to college. I was not going to do any hard work. I was always a hard worker. I just did not like doing hard work. Right?
Yeah.
So I was never lazy. I had a great idea that I was going to get me a drug enterprise. I was going to make millions of dollars. I was going to buy me an island, and I was going to
Wow.
live on this island with umpteen amount of women, and they all wore bikinis. And I was the only one that was going to speak English on there, and we was going to drink out of these cups with the umbrellas and the long straws
Yeah.
and the pineapple cups. We was going to do that, and I was going to retire from that around 40.
Who wouldn't want that? I mean,
Yeah, I know,
yeah.
right? Yeah, but that never happened.
Yeah.
That never happened. And I believe I got the idea because of a lot of movies that was being displayed in the movie theater and on
Yeah.
cable at the time, like Scarface, and all
Right.
that was coming out around that time. And I was like, oh, I want some of that. I want that.
It was
But I had
sensationalized. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I had a plan that I was going to do it different than he done it, so I won't go get killed in the end, right?
Right.
Or I wasn't going to get caught because he wasn't smart enough to do what I could do, and so I had figured it all out.
Right.
By the 10th grade, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna retire at 40 years old. Like I said, that never happened.
Sounds like a good plan other than the getting killed part,
Right. That never happened. What ended up happening to the process of a couple of years back was I ended up going to prison. I ended up getting addicted to drugs. I ended up becoming homeless. I ended up getting shot 4 times in the chest and left for dead.
Oh man.
None of that fairy tale never happened. The reality was that like I said, I ended up getting addicted to drugs. I became homeless, and I ended up getting shot 4 times in the chest. That was my reality. And but I'll say this: all of that stemmed from, and I'm still paying the consequences 30 years later from an idea that I had when I was 15 or 16 years old. And that's deep. I'm still paying the consequences 30 years later from an idea that I had when I was 15 or 16 years old. Right? Wow. So, like I said, I ended up, going to prison, and I came home and I ended up getting shot 4 times in the chest. And I was paralyzed from my neck down. The only thing I could do was move my head.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, and that was very traumatic for me because I stayed in the hospital for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And
Did you, well, I mean, you were able to, was this the point when you were able to regain function because of just, I remember hearing you talking about just
no, I haven't even got to that yet.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
That's all right. And when I was in the hospital, like the nurses and doctors, they would come in my room and they would always tell me in the beginning that I would never be able to provide for myself. I would never be able to protect myself. I would never be able to feed myself. I would never be able to clean myself. I could never do any human functions again. There will always have to be somebody there to take care of me, and I would be bedridden for the rest of my life, probably in somebody's nursing home.
Mm.
That's all they told me in the beginning. That's all they told me. And for a while, I believed them because I actually didn't know any better at the time. I didn't know who I was at the time, my capabilities at the time, my strength, my weaknesses, internally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because at this time I was still young, so everything for me was physical. Like, so
It's what you'd
one
been
night,
exposed to up to this point. And you hadn't really been
yeah,
exposed to anything else. Yeah.
yeah. Where I'm from, we doesn't men doesn't they're not taught how to handle our emotions
Mm-hmm.
or how to deal spiritually, or like I said, on an emotional level. Everything is physical. Everything is move, grab, take, get what you can get, and move on to the next one. Right? The sign of showing emotions are considered weak.
Mm. Right.
So we never practiced that coming up as boys. So yeah, when I say about 8 or 9 months in, a priest and a nurse came to my well, let me back up right before then. Um I was laying in the bed, and all I could do at this particular time was watch TV 24 hours a day.
Mm.
That's all I could do. And all it could show me was the things that I would never be able to do again.
Mm.
And it killed my spirit. And all I saw was beer commercials, food commercials, and underwear commercials.
Mm.
So and couples, and I never could see myself with a female again because I couldn't. I wore a big blue pamper all day, every day. Somebody had to change me. And one day I was laying in the bed watching TV, and a fly flew on my face. And I blew it because I couldn't move nothing but my head at the time. And I blew it off, and it blew wherever it went, and it came right back.
Oh, wow.
And it walked on my face, and I went to blow it. I was trying to blow it. It never moved. It just walked all across my face and all up in my eye. And at that point, that's when it really, like, truly set in me that I was hopeless.
Mm.
That I couldn't even protect myself from a punk fly. I couldn't even brush him off or anything. I was at his defense, at his mercy of a fly. And that killed my spirit. And I just cried.
Mm.
I just cried. And I'll say a couple weeks after that, the priest come in my room with the nurse at night to tell me that my mother had passed.
Oh, goodness.
Now, it was really only me and my mother. She was the only person I ever had in this world that I knew that wherever, no matter what, whatever I'd done, wherever I've been, whatever happened, that she was going to always be there. I've always known that. She never gave me a doubt of that. And when that was taken from me, I lost it. Not only, I went into an emotional wreck.
Mm.
I had nervous breakdowns, and I just given up. I was like, what else can happen? Can't anything else happen? And I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to commit homicide.
Mm.
Whatever kind of side it was, I wanted to be a part of
I
it. And
bet.
uh, I say after her funeral, because they took me to the funeral and brought me back to the hospital. It was like 2 weeks later when I was just laying in the bed sleep. And my mother, she was a supervisor where she worked at, and she smoked cigarettes. So she always ate Hall's cough drops because she didn't want people to smell a cigarette um, on her breath when when she would talk to him. And so she always ate Hall's cough drops. And that night, I just heard a voice in my ear that said, "If you do not fight for your life, you are going to die."
Wow.
And when I opened my eyes and I looked up, nobody was there. The room was pitch. Even the television wasn't on this night, and I could smell Hall cough drops.
Oh my
I could
goodness.
smell them, and I didn't know what. And I was like, "Well, what do I do? What I don't know what to do. I can't. Only thing I could move at the time was my neck." So I was like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't have a place to start." And it was like that. It was probably like 3 in the morning. The physical therapist lady, they come through around 7 or 8 in the morning, and they'll work you for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting, I was like, what do I do? The whole night trying to figure out, how can I rectify this situation, or how can I make it better? And the physical therapist lady came in and she said, "You want to do physical therapy today?" And up to this point, every morning that they would come in, I'll cuss them out like, "No, I don't want to do no damn physical therapy. What is it going to do for me? Y'all get out my room," because I was mad at the world,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, but this morning she ended up asking me, and I answered yes. I said, "Yes, ma'am, I want to do physical therapy." And she was walking out the door, and she turned around and she looked at me and she said, "What angel slapped you on the ass last night?" And I said, I don't know. I just need to try. So what they did, they got me out, they got the machine, got me out of the bed, set me in the wheelchair, and took me to physical therapy. And at this point, like I said, I couldn't move nothing but my neck and my head. But I always had like tingling in my top of my shoulder, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
So what they would do, they would roll me up to like this little bicycle thing that was on the chair, and they would scrap my legs into the pedals, and the physical therapist would get behind me and get behind my chair and just use my elbows, like in this type of motion, like a
Right.
pedaling motion with my
Yeah.
hands. And we did this for weeks. And it was just one day, um,
So they
I
would
just,
kind of move your hands for you at first so you could
yeah,
get into that
yeah,
motion and start learning that muscle pattern with your brain. And then, yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah,
right. Because
yeah.
I kept hearing them say muscle mass has memory.
Mm.
Muscle has memory. I kept hearing them say that. Even if they wasn't talking to me, I heard it. And so they did that. We did that for weeks, months probably. And I started feeling like I could move my shoulders a little bit.
Mm.
You know, I felt like my movement in my shoulders. So what I had to do was I had to stop all negativity from coming in my room, first of all.
Oh,
The
yeah.
nurses and the doctors, they used to come in there and say that I would never be able to take care of myself, bathe myself, clothe myself, feed myself, protect myself, wash myself. I had to stop that at the door. And I put a sign on the door, do not bring any negative energy into my room.
Wow.
Because I had
That's
to protect,
such a good move on your part
yeah,
to do that. Yeah.
I had to protect my energy.
Yeah.
I didn't need them bringing that negative energy in there, trying to go up force with the energy because I had little. I was working on faith at the time, right?
Mm.
So I didn't have a lot of energy. I just
Yeah.
knew I had to do something.
Right.
And so like I said, as my shoulders started going, then I said, I'm gonna learn how to feed myself. So, because up to this point, they were still doing everything for me. So I would go in my room, they would bring my tray, and they would scrap my hands to this big fork, and they would just put my hand on the plate. and I would just try to feed myself. And all I could do was throw my shoulder, but I could feel like my arm moving off the plate just by me throwing my shoulder up in the air. And I would not allow those nurses to feed me. And some days they would be so mad because when they come back, I have food all over. So now not only do they gotta clean me up, they gotta put me in the bed, and that was more work for them. So, they would be like, just let us feed. I'd be like, no, I have to do this for myself. I have to. And it took like 4 days, and I was fucking starving. And they had Brussels sprouts. I never forget it. Brussels sprouts for lunch. And I got that Brussels sprout on that fork, and I moved it to my mouth. And I hate Brussels sprouts, but that was the best Brussels sprout. I was so hungry. I tore that Brussels sprout up, right? And so I got an idea. Was like, okay, since I done, I was so excited. I was so happy that I accomplished something. So when we would come back from therapy, I said, you know what? I need to learn how to sit up on my own in the bed, because they were still picking me up with the machine, putting me in the chair. I said, I want to learn how to get out of the bed, get in the chair on myself. So what I would have them do, instead of leaving my back up on my hospital bed, I would have them lay it straight out. And I'll be laying on my back. And I started just trying to do sit-ups, trying to get up out of bed. And at first, all I could do was like my chin would hit my chest. That's all I could do. And weeks and months went on, and I started coming off the bed just a little bit. And some days or some weeks there was no progression, and I wanted to quit, but some was like, just keep going, just keep trying. And weeks went on, and the next thing you know, I'm getting up, sitting up in the bed by myself. I got this great fucking six-pack I done obtained along the way with all these sit-ups that I've done, And we've done that for a while. So I still didn't have any strength in my arms. So what I ended up doing after we did that for a while, they'll bring me back from physical therapy because it was only an hour, and then they had to move on. So I knew I needed more than an hour in a day. So they would lay me on my stomach on my bed, and I would try to do push-ups.
Oh, wow.
And like at first I couldn't do not one, not a half. Next thing, months go by, because this was years in the making. This didn't happen overnight. This was years. And next thing you know, I'm doing push-ups off the bed. I'm doing push-ups off the bed. I'm sitting up off the bed. I'm getting out of the bed by myself, getting in my chair, but the whole time I was praying, like, God help me, God help me, God help me. And it was a little over 2 years when one morning I woke up and it felt like I had to urinate.
Oh, wow. But that was a big
I
deal.
haven't had that feeling in over 2 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And it kind of shocked me at first. And I remember when I looked down and I saw I had an erection.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, I hadn't had one in 2 years, and you have to still understand that I was still young.
Yeah.
Right. So everything was still physical for me at this point. Right. So when I looked down, and I snatched that big blue pamper off, and I was like, yes. I was like, yes, yes, yes. And so the nurse came in, and she was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, it's just something between just leave me alone. Right. So she come back like 45 minutes later, and I'm still right there in the same position, doing the same thing. And she like, well, when did you want to put it up? Right. And I was like, well, I have to pee, but I was afraid that if I pee, that it would go down and it would never come back up. Right.
Wow.
So I sat there for like 45 minutes having to pee, but was scared to pee. Then actually, I finally had to go, and I went on my own. And like I said, it was years before I was able to go on my own. And
Something we all
then,
take for granted, really. It's
yeah,
until you don't have it, right? Or have that feeling.
most things in life we take for granted until it's taken away from us.
Yeah.
Even down to the smallest details, because those are the things that matters the most. We think it's
Yes.
the bigger thing, but it be the littlest things that matter the most to us when it's taken away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I finally decided I was gonna, they was like, you can do, you if you stay another year or two, you probably get more movement in your legs. But up to this point now, I was like, no, I got it now. I have it now. I got it. I can handle it now. Now that I got that back, I can, meet a female again, and we can do this and we can do that. And I left the hospital. But see, what I forgot was that when I told her that I got this, I never had it, because the whole time when I was doing it, I was praying every night. Like, help me, God, if you help me with this. But soon as everything came into fruition, the first thing I was like, no, I got this now. I got it now.
Yeah.
Like I took over control again.
Yeah.
And what
Right.
ended up, yeah. And what ended up happening was a long, miserable, horrible 7 or 8 years, because I left out of there and I didn't change anything with my mind. I didn't change anything with my spirit, and I went into the same place that I just gotten shot at. I went straight around there with the same place, the same people, the same associates, the same thing, and I end up doing the same thing all over again. End
Yeah.
up getting back on drugs. I end up having a nervous breakdown where I had to go back in the hospital. I end up getting decubitus ulcers on my behind, which has taken years to finally start healing up.
Wow.
And yeah,
You've
yeah.
been
And
through it. You've been through everything, it sounds like.
oh
Just
yeah,
about.
oh yeah. And then I end up going to prison. I caught a federal case, end up going to prison for 8.5 years in the wheelchair, uh, all the way in Texas. I come home after 8.5 years. All these promises I made to my family and my daughters and my grandkids when I was in prison. When I come home, within 4 months, I had overdosed from a heroin injection
Mhm.
and was back in prison. I never got to saw my daughter. I never got to saw my son. I never got to saw my grandkids. I never even got to meet a female, because I had an idea that I was just going to do it one time, and then I was going to go on with my life and everything was going to come together.
Mhm.
But for me, one time is never enough. My history has told me that I could never do one of anything and be satisfied with it, because my body has an allergy that once it's put in, I get what they call, what is it, Chad, a phenomenon of craving? Woo! And off I go again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in that process, I had to go back for a year. But right before that, I went to a drug treatment program called the Healing Place down here in Richmond, Virginia. And I sat in there for about a month before I went back to prison.
Mm.
And I did the year in prison. Within, I say, 3 weeks before I was supposed to come home, I called the Healing Place and asked them, could I be released to them?
Oh,
Because
wow.
I had learned a lot in that month when I was in there, especially dealing with myself and how I think.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot, and they told me, they was like, come on back. As soon as you get out, just come straight on in. Because I also knew that I couldn't be just thrown back into society. I needed some discipline. I still needed some structure. I still needed to be spoon-fed back into society, right?
Right.
And
Yeah. You need that
so,
extra support.
yes, yes. So I ended up going there. I stayed there I stayed there for a year. I stayed in there for a year. And doing our commencement, that's how I met Mark Ingram.
Oh,
Doing
okay. I
our
was going to ask. Yeah. Yeah.
doing our commencement, we had 17 people that speak. It was 17 graduates. So
Okay.
everybody get like a 2-minute spiel after the graduation on, like their history or whatever they choose the topic to be. And Mark had came there because he thought that who was it? Not David Robinson, but another friend of his was supposed to be doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
he come there to support him. I had never
Ah,
met him up to this point. And he sat out in the audience with one of the directors of Caritas, Miss Marilyn, and everybody spoke, and I went last. And he heard me, and Mark is a professional, pronounced speaker all over the world,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
His credentials speak for himself. And
Absolutely.
after I spoke, he told Miss Marilyn, he said, "You tell that guy right there that I want to meet him." And Miss Marilyn came to me and was like, "I have somebody want to meet you." And I was like, "Miss Marilyn, because still up to this point, I had never like spoken out in public. Everybody that wanted to meet me, especially that was white, was either a probation officer, a police, and I didn't owe any child support or court or a judge. So I was
Right.
like, I don't owe nothing. I ain't done nothing. And she was like,
So
no.
more of a defensive stance, kind of like,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And I ended up meeting him up at Starbucks like the next day. And when he come in, I'm already in my mind like, man, what this crazy guy want with me? He got his laptop and his book bag, and he got his flip-flop phone, and I'm like, oh shit, what? And he came in and he introduced himself. He told me who he was, and he gave me some of his credentials as far as the TED Talks and the podcasts, and the coaching. And he said that I was the best around the edges speaker that he had ever heard. And he said that he could groom my skills if I let him. Would I like to speak? And up to this point, I always knew I wanted to help somebody.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how. And I knew that I had spoken in at that time only meetings and things like that, and people like really connected to what I was saying. And I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, I would love to do that. And he told me, he said, this is what we're gonna have to do. He said, you're gonna have to, first of all, every chance you get to speak, you need to speak. He said, you might not make a dime. He said, but every time you get to speak, you need to speak. And that's what I done on every occasion. Every time somebody asked me to do something. For a whole year, I didn't make a dime. My money, my gas, everything, the car, whatever, to get there and get back, whatever it was, that's what I done.
Right.
And yeah, and that went on for about a year. And next thing you know, like the word of mouth just started getting out, and next thing you know, people calling me like you, and I'm seeing other people to do podcasts, and I'm going down into Mexico, I'm
Oh,
going to San
nice.
Diego and
Ah,
Texas, and and that's when I understood that what had happened to me was bigger than me, because I saw it as a crisis. Right?
yeah.
I saw it like this was my limited, but it actually pushed me to another platform that I never saw coming. I
That's
never saw
incredible.
this coming. I never saw this in my future. I didn't know me getting shot 4 times in the chest, me being paralyzed from the waist, from the neck down, like 10, 20 years later, that I would be inspiring people. I would be
Yeah.
motivating people. I would be coaching people. I'm like, what?
Wow. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
incredible. You learned so much from those experiences, though. As traumatic as they were, I bet you learned a lot from those
Oh,
experiences.
oh yeah. But
Yeah.
like I said, it was a process. It did not happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people do tell me like, we have somebody that we want you to go and talk to in the hospital, they just is in the wheelchair. I was like, when I was in there, the first, like, especially that first year or two, I ain't want to hear nothing anybody had to say because you couldn't understand what I was going through.
Right. Yeah.
But
Nobody was
now,
in your shoes, Nobody.
no,
Yeah.
they couldn't understand that. And
Yeah.
but what ended up happening was now I'm in a position where I do understand what you're going through because I've been there.
Yeah.
Like,
That's so
I know
powerful.
exactly how you feel because I felt that.
Yeah.
So I'm in a
That's
position where they can't say that to me.
right. Yeah.
And your journey don't have to be as rough as mine's been up to this point. And I can help you along the way if you want.
Yeah. You've like that's what a good coach or guide always does is they've been on that road before. They know how to guide you down that road
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they know how you yeah. So that but I think your experiences are very valuable. It's not first of all, not many people get to experience that. And number two, um you've been in a place where so much of the physical and the material world were I mean, it just you didn't have access to that for a while, which how many people get to experience that and then slowly get to integrate that back into their life again? That's an
Yeah, that's what
incredible thing.
yeah, like when somebody say I lost it all, I say, no, you haven't. I say, no, you haven't. You just lost the house or the car or the wife. I said,
Right.
you have not lost it all. You know. And
Exactly.
the thing that like I always speak big on the character in the healing place. In every podcast, I always give them a shout out because they helped me so much, especially in understanding how that I need to rewire how I think.
Yeah.
Because
It's
everything up to that point was an excuse or blame. Why I'm
mhm.
in this position, why I feel like this or why I do the things that I do. I had to learn how to, okay, now, since we're not even identifying with the problem anymore. Now we are trying to identify with the solution,
Yeah.
you
It's way more
know,
powerful.
way more. And it's more peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more. And you know what else it is? It's not as crowded in the solution as it is in the problem.
That's so true. Yeah. So much more
Yeah, a
drama
lot
in the
of people.
problem. Yeah. Yeah. I just lost your yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
can you
there,
hear
you're
me?
back. Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
I'm trying to call me.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, yeah, the drama that and the energy that it takes to really go about it from a problem mode only, it's
Mm-hmm.
astronomical. Like, it's you don't have to make it like what I'm learning, and of course, I've had different experiences in my life, but I'm learning that I don't have to make it about it doesn't always have to be about what I make it all the time. It can just be what it is, right? And
And that's
just
all it is.
yeah,
That's all it is. It is what it is. No
yeah.
more, no less.
And if we can go about it that way, we don't take things so personally and we overcome obstacles and we're able to do what you did and make lemonade out of lemons. And
That's right.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Because a lot of times I see we stay in a lot of things in life is meant to be permanent.
Right.
Some things are only meant to be temporary. Right? And that includes people. The problem is when we try to make temporary people permanent. that's when the problems and the chaos and the fighting and the confusion come in. Because we wanna, we got this idea of this certain thing that we're supposed to be this, we're supposed to do that, we're supposed to live this way, and we're supposed to be married or have certain kids, and then when it don't work out, you feel like you failed, like a failure, right? But you're really not a failure. It just not was a permanent solution. It just was a temporary thing, right? You got what you got out of it, the blessings, the lessons, and everything else that came with it, and then it's time to move on. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's those expectations, like you say, get in the way of really living sometimes, and actually experiencing everything that life has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I have a question for you, Paris. Do you have how much more time do you have? You about 15 more minutes or 10 minutes, or do you have to go? Sounds like
Yeah, I have about 15 more minutes.
50. Okay. At what point did you kind of shift into to the spiritual? Like, when did you start having, I mean, I remember you talking about this experience when you're laying in bed in prison, and you were realizing how unlimited you really were, and not.
Oh, yeah. That was
Yeah.
on the one right before I came to because I had went in the healing place, like I said, and then a month later, they sent me to prison. And I was always trying to figure out like what I was doing wrong. Because every time when I'm in prison, I mean, for years, I've studied all different kind of religions. I was always trying to get a connection to God, right? And so I said, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn this, and I'm gonna learn this, so I can get like some type of understanding, because whatever I was doing wasn't working, right? Or he wasn't listening, or whatever the case may be, or I wasn't praying right. Whatever it was, it wasn't working for me. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so like I said, I end up when I got back there, I was just laying on the bed one day, and my mind was always all the way here in Richmond, Virginia. And I don't know what I was doing at the time in my mind, but I was in the bed in Kentucky in a federal prison. And I remember one of the guys coming back, and he was like, "Man, come on back here," and he shook me. And I came to, and I was like, "Man, I was gone, wasn't it?" And he was like, "Yeah, you was out there, bro. You was out there." And like it had dawned on me, like even with my body being in the condition that it's in, right? Like you could put this in a box, but you couldn't put my mind in a box, right? And I was like, wow. I was like, that was, so God is if to me, if he's everything, he's anything that I can imagine him to be, right? And you can't put your imagination in a box. They might have put you in a box physically, right? But spiritually and mentally, they can't put you there.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I was like, and that's when I remember them telling me that you have to get your own concept of God, right? Because and so I got off of religion, like trying to put a face, a name, a gender, a race. I just got off of that, right? And I started focusing more on the spirituality part of it, the universal part of it, and I just started seeing, like more, go ahead. I just started seeing like more and different results. I felt more freer.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I didn't have it wasn't about the what I would say the not the sacrifices, but the practices, right? It wasn't about the practices anymore. It was more about a personal relationship, to the God of my understanding.
Yeah.
And that freed me up a lot, because I wasn't chained, or I wasn't bound to how other people's perception of God was supposed to be. Right? Because if he told them, then I'm pretty sure he would have told me too. You know,
It's true.
you
Good
know,
way to
so
think about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so what the hell make you think the arrogance of you, you know, that he can speak
Yeah.
to you and not me, So yeah, so that's just how I became, more like I say, I had to learn how to change my whole perspective of the way I thought because I was taught a certain way for so many years that was a truth to me. And I would fight and fuss and cuss you down, you know. And now the reality is, after doing my own work and my own research and having my own understanding, right, that I could choose God or whatever I choose to call it, whatever I want.
Yeah. It symbolizes whatever it is for you and whatever it means to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you, Paris. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you coming on my show and sharing your story and your wisdom. If you'd like, you can share with everybody where they can find you, what kind of things you're doing with your speaking career these days, and what you're offering.
Okay, well, you can find me on Paris Robinson 1195. That's my YouTube, not YouTube, Instagram.
Okay. All right.
But I'm on Paris Robinson YouTube. That
So you have a
Paris
YouTube channel.
Robinson,
Okay.
yeah. Now I have a channel, but I have clips of some of my performances on there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
I'm right now because of the COVID thing, like they shut the country down for a while, so
Yeah.
it's just starting to open back up as far as getting large gatherings together, speaking and all. So
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a while. Mostly I've just been doing a lot of podcasts. And
Okay.
I,
Yeah.
I did get a job, like I was telling you, at the Caritas Center. It was only for men down here in Richmond, Virginia. But they just opened up a brand new facility that is for women.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's CaritasVA.org, and the healing place for women. That's where I work at now. That's why I'm getting ready to go in a couple of minutes. Yeah,
Wonderful.
so
That's amazing.
yeah, so I've been working there since December, to help with my bills and stuff. And
Yeah. But that's really nice to be able to be there and give back as well what you received from that organization.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I never thought at one time I couldn't wait to get out that building. I was like, I get out the building, I ain't never coming back. I'm done with it. And now you can't keep me out of the building.
Well, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. And I'm also on Facebook as Paris Robinson.
Paris Robinson. Okay. And then you said you're okay. I'll put those links in the show notes, and you're on Instagram, and then you have the videos on Instagram, but you have
Yeah,
also some YouTube videos
right.
okay.
Right.
All right. All right. Cool. Well, so nice to connect with you finally, and really get to sit down and talk, and it just was great. Thanks, Paris. I appreciate it.
Thanks you for having me again.
Yeah,
Tell Zoe bro I say hi.
I will.
Okay.
All right, Paris, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.